On today's show, I unbox the Jada M.Bison from Streetfighter II. We talk a little bit about a famous American boxer who influenced this figure, and we talk a little bit about the 1995 Streetfighter II V series. Stay tuned. Welcome back to another Jada Street Fighter unboxing, and if you haven't seen them already, I've done a Cammy and the Chun-Li, and now I'm getting into some of the other characters, and this one is M.Bison. And of course, if you don't know who M.Bison is, he's kind of the big bad, he's the boss man, and he's the baddie, he's the villain of the entire series, along with Sagat and arguably Vega. And that brings me on to something that a lot of people don't know about M.Bison. Now, M.Bison, as you can see, has kind of a military look to him, and we're going to get into that a little bit later too. But what does it mean? Why M.Bison? What's the M stand for? And more importantly, was he always called that? And the answer kind of goes into a little bit of a legend, and I'm not sure how much proof there is to this, but there is some evidence to suggest that it's true. So the rumor is originally that M.Bison's name was Vega, which is a cool name, and you might know Vega as the mask-wearing Spaniard with the big claw, quite a villain against Chun-Li in the movie. And you also might know the character Balrog, who is the boxer, kind of a 1990s style boxer. Great characters, all characters that people pretty much know. But originally, the character of Balrog, which is a cool name by the way, originally his name was Mike Bison. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what they were going for with a boxer with a very 90s style whose name was Mike Bison. They at some point got cold feet and decided we can't call this guy Mike Bison and have him look exactly like Mike Tyson. This guy's going to knock us out either physically or through litigation. So the rumor is they changed Vega's name to M.Bison. That meant they had to rearrange everything else. So now Vega had to become M.Bison, and then the character that we know as Vega became Vega, and then the character that was going to be Mike Bison became Balrog. Now it's a weird little change though, because in my opinion, any of you Lord of the Rings nerds will know, Balrog is kind of a demonic, evil, giant, kind of fiery creature. That really would have fit this guy pretty well, I think. But here's another reason why I think that they chose the M. There was a kind of famous dictator of Siam, which later became Thailand, and his name was the Marshal. He kind of called himself the Marshal. He dressed up in like military regalia. I'm not even sure he was part of the military, but he like dressed up in the full military regalia and called himself the Marshal. So I wonder if the M kind of is in a reference to Marshall. I don't know. It's a little bit of a reach, but I went a little deep on this. And moreover, I have a question. Why isn't he from Germany? Because he is clearly, absolutely with no doubt, inspired by a German SS officer. If you don't believe me, check out the skull and wings on his cap. Check out the S lightning bolt logo on his belt buckle. I'm telling you, this guy is definitely based on an SS officer. So did they just not have the balls to make him be from Germany? Because there's already a guy from Thailand. We already have Sagat from Thailand. Why do we need another guy from Thailand? I don't know. Is it a reference to the Marshal? I don't know. I have questions. I'd love to get these guys drunk and sit them down and ask them some questions. But anyway, enough about the history. I just thought you'd like to know a little bit about why this guy's called M. Bison, and it makes no sense. It's not Mr. Bison. Maybe it's Marshall Bison. But I suspect it's the name change from Mike Bison to M.Bison. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about the figure itself. So some things that it's included with is obviously this bendy wire cape, which allows you to get it into some pretty cool poses, and it stays in those poses, and that is pretty neat for display. Now, this is removable, and it's done so by basically unclipping the shoulder pads, and I'll show that in a second. We obviously have full articulation here. He can basically do full splits, just incredible articulation. We've got ab crunch, we got multiple points of articulation. Now, these shoulder pads are essentially on a rotational bit on the shoulder, so they only go front and back. And this does unclip, and I gotta remember, you gotta go back to front, and then it unclips. I think it's back to front. Either way, it snaps, it unsnaps. There we go, back to front, and then it just comes off. Now you might be looking, oh, that's kind of ugly, but they do give you some included shoulder pieces, which I don't have sitting here with me. I'll show them on the photo, but there are some included shoulder pieces that finish this off, and they snap on the same way. Now, my only real gripe with the entire figure really is this shoulder thing. Now, I love the fact that they give you the extra shoulder pieces. I love the cape, it looks great. I do feel like maybe their original plan was to have magnets in there, and I see some like circular pieces in here. I feel like the original plan might have been either some magnets or something else that clipped in there differently. So I wonder if there was some reason that they had to make a last minute change, but the clip-on thing works just fine. It's just a little fiddly when you get into the posing, when you start moving the arm around. Eventually you're gonna get to a point where it pops that thing off. It's just another piece to lose. I'm really nitpicking here, but it's probably my least favorite part about the figure. One thing I really love is this butterfly cut here, and it does allow you to get those arms in for like a crossed arm pose, which is really, really necessary. Talk about some of the other things included. Obviously, we have this fire fist punch accessory, and it just slips over top of the fist here, pretty easy. And obviously that looks great. It's just as good as the other ones from the other figures. In fact, I think I like it a little bit more because the one from Chun-Li required a stand, essentially, to make it even work. So I had to have a whole separate stand. And the one from Cammy, because it's kind of like her kick move, you can't actually display her with it without a separate stand kind of like holding her up. And you can use Chun-Li's accessory stand to kind of clip into it. A lot of people don't know that. But this is a little nicer because you can display it just by itself. So his shelf presence is really good. I want to point out these soft rubber bits here, this butt flap. It's really soft, so you can get him into a sitting pose, and it just moves right out of the way. You can see it's moved. I love the idea that they gave you cloth goods for the cape, but they didn't necessarily give you a cloth goods for the jacket. And I know Jada is doing that for their Cyberpunk line, which I plan on getting into. I really want that. I'm 100%, once the pre-order comes up for that Rebecca figure, I'm 100% ordering it. But I'll tell you what makes me a little bit nervous. I'm not a soft goods guy. I feel like once you get into the soft goods, essentially they become a Barbie doll. Now again, I've said this before, these are all dolls. But the soft goods sometimes just makes it, for me, again, as kind of old school, feels a little bit more like a Barbie doll. I'm definitely still gonna buy it. Rebecca's my favorite character from that series, but I wish it was more of this soft plastic like this, but we'll see. I don't know, I haven't actually seen it yet. I might eat my words entirely. So let's see how that works. Now, since we're talking about M.Bison, I really did want to relate this to anime, and of course we're going to talk about some of the Street Fighter anime. We've talked about the movie, and we talked about a couple of the ones that were more recent with Cammy, but I'm going to go way back to one from 1995, and it's called Street Fighter II V, and it's a 29-episode series from the now defunct Manga Entertainment. And boy, manga has been defunct for 8 years, maybe 9 years now, which is sad because I'm not sure who owns the rights to that now. It's kind of hard to find. But I feel like it's one of my favorite Street Fighter series, or Street Fighter media, I guess, because it's a little bit more lighthearted. So Ken, Ryu, Chun-Li, they're actually just teenagers in this, 17, 18 years old. And so it makes a little bit more sense why they're doing what they're doing. Also, it's a little bit more lighthearted. It's fun. There's tons of comedy, there's silliness. Sure, there's fighting, and the fighting looks really good, but it's not all just one-sided where Ken and Ryu just go in and clean up everybody. They lose sometimes. They get beat up sometimes. There's new characters introduced in interesting ways. Again, there's comedy. I think it's worth your time if you can find it. Again, it's 29 episodes. It's silly. Again, like in episode 3, like Ken and Ryu are like skinny dipping in a pool. There are some very funny, wildly offensive American stereotypes that are in the very first episode of that show. So if nothing else, check out that first episode. It's worth a laugh to see how they make fun of us. Again, I think you'll like it. The fighting's good. The animation's pretty good. If you like retro style anime and you haven't seen it, give it a go. Especially if you like these old games, you're gonna like the retro nostalgia feel to it. So we talked a little bit about the cape. We talked about the shoulder pads. We talked about the fire accessory, but we haven't talked yet about the other things included, and there's more. There's an extra head sculpt, which looks brilliant. It's kind of more of a grimacing head sculpt. And then there's both fists and kind of like a clenching hand. And they both look great. And you can see they both look brilliant. It gives you some amazing options between the alternate portrait and the alternate hands. It gives you so many options, especially now with an alternate cape that you can have. It just, in the past, you bought a figure and it was essentially like a statue. It just looked like that forever, whatever pose it came with. And you were pretty limited, and it maybe got a little old. And now, when you have something on your shelf, most of us will pick one thing, but every so often you can go through and change it up. Change up the head sculpt, change up his hand pose, change up the cape. And now it's something a little bit different. For this price point, which I'm going to get into in a second, I'm really not sure how much better you can do. And that brings me to what the cost is on this one. Now, I think retail price on most of these is about 28 bucks. However, Big Bad Toy Store right now, you can get this guy for about 25 bucks. So for 25 bucks from Big Bad Toy Store, you're getting a figure that has a cape, a bendy wire cape, shoulder pad accessories to pose it without the cape, an extra head sculpt, an extra set of hands, and the fire punch accessory. 25 bucks. That's incredible. And if you haven't already seen the packaging from these, they look great on the shelf. It's got this retro arcade style. These look good whether they're in the box or posed on your shelf. What an excellent way to display them. Now, if you haven't seen here, I bought another one of these. I got it for an incredible deal. I had a gift card, so we're gonna be unboxing Ryu next. Of course, I feel like I had to skip another one of these. And I think I'm gonna pair it with a unboxing of Jinx, who I also have, who's a similar martial arts figure. And I think we're gonna kind of compare those two to see who does the martial arts figures the best. And I'm gonna be honest, it's probably gonna end up being Jada, but who knows? So it's gonna be a little Jada versus Hasbro type thing. So stay tuned for that. But I really wanted to check out this packaging, especially with the cross-sell on the back. So my final thoughts on this M.Bison figure. I am gushing over this figure. It is amazing. You get a great deal. It's got excellent shelf presence. My only two gripes is that the shoulder pieces pop off a little too easy. They're not just flying off, but they pop off a little too easy, and when they go on, because of how flexy this bit is here, in order to snap these on, I felt like I was pushing it pretty hard, and when it finally did click in, it went in fine. But what I ended up having to do was slip something underneath there so I wasn't pushing against just the joint, and then I could push down on it. Your mileage may vary, and there was some burrs on the edge of this plastic that you could maybe file down just to kind of get it a little bit more of a smooth click in. But you might never take them off, so it might not be a thing for you at all. So that was just one gripe. Again, I'm nitpicking here. The other gripe is that while he is 1/12 scale, so he does scale quite well with the other Street Fighter figures. So if you put him next to Cammy, you put him next to Chun-Li, they seem just fine. I imagine he's going to scale well with Ryu. Sagat is taller. He's a totally different price point, and as is some of the other ones like Blanca. However, if you scale him next to, say, Cobra Commander here, who is also 1/12 scale, you can see he's just a smidge too small in what I would consider his like body build. And so Cobra Commander is probably a tall, slender guy, and if he is standing on a stand here, which is kind of giving him some Tom Cruise energy, like he's just got some lifts in his shoes, I do feel like this guy should have been just a smidge bigger in comparison to Cobra Commander here. Maybe a little bit thicker, maybe a little bit taller, but honestly, it's not big enough, and if you're just displaying him with the other Street Fighter characters, I believe the scale is perfect. But again, those are my only gripes, and I'm really nitpicking here for 25 bucks that you can now get it for. Pick this up. Don't even think about it. If you're a fan of the game, pick this up. There is an ultimate version of it, a player 2 version, which they've been doing. I believe it's in blue. A couple bucks more just because it's, well, that's just the retail price now. It's back to 28 bucks for that one. If you like the alternate skin better, pick that one up. It doesn't seem hard to get. I was able to pick this up pretty easily. And yeah, until next time, my name was Scott. Kanpai.